wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is Flip Your Finances, which is perhaps timely for you this time of year with present and gift giving where everything is going out. So we just thought it was worth revisiting this other taboo topic, probably the most other taboo one other than sexuality, and the one most intertwined with our empowerment and most intertwined with our sense of shame and lack or deprivation. So there's so many stories, I think, to bust around this. So
I'm so excited about going into this topic again. It's been so long since
I can see how lit up you are. Like, it actually excites me just watching you do that. So before I do that, I'd love to remind you to jump onto nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe, where once a week we will send you an email that wraps up everything that's in the world, and you can pick and choose where you'd love to dive deeper. And then occasionally we send you a more personal conversation that perhaps Bridget and I would have. So if you'd love to stay in touch with us during your week, then drop in your email at nourishingthemother.com.au.
So I was chatting to Jules about this topic and reflecting, I suppose, on both of our years, really in terms of where our values have lied and then where we've been called to perhaps empower finances in a way that we haven't done before. And that's particularly more your story in terms of your renovation and, you know, what you had to kind of rejig in terms of your own values and your own money blocks, I suppose, to make that a reality.
So let's just preface this by, we realised when we were going back through, because we're redoing our website at the moment, which we should have up by the new year.
Yeah.
New year, new website. And we saw our Flip Your Finances, which we did 2 years ago as like a private 1 week course. And Bridget was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to re-listen to that. And you did.
Yeah.
And you were like, that was 2 years ago. Like, that's extraordinary. There's so much gold in there and so much that has changed that we kind of wanted to update the story on that.
Yeah, so this is really, I guess, our update on our stories, I suppose, around and a more broader conversation around the topic of money and of finances and of, I guess, wealth building and what gets in the way. Because, as you suggested, there is so much layers around our relationship with money and the beliefs that we hold around it, you know, and that those beliefs are not just our own, like they are cultural, they are epigenetically programmed within us, you know, because there is such a deep, you know, repression in a lot of ways around, you know, expanded wealth and expanded sexuality, you know, two incidentally areas that the church has always historically minimized in, you know, in people.
Or had control over.
Yeah, really didn't want to see, you know, the luscious, empowered, feminine, sexual woman, nor did it want to see the, you know, unlimited, you know, personal wealth. You know, that was really wealth that the church wanted. So to understand the broader sociological constructs around us and how they influence our own relationship with money and with our attitude to money is really interesting, because once we can be aware of that, we can start to see how we've allowed that to shape us and therefore how we can change our story and increase our empowerment as a result.
So where do you want to start? So you've listened to the audios, which as yet I have not. I'm just really interested, before we even get into the nitty gritty, is what did you notice was different from you and I 2 years ago? Yeah,
so I think what was different is probably the shift a little bit in terms of me pulling back on my I wouldn't say empowerment, but more of a greater alignment and trust with my own values around money and it less anxiety driven. So I've, you know, I spent 10 years working in financial services, and so that naturally gave me a drive.
A focus.
Yeah, focus, yeah. And so that has really been what's carried me for the last, as long as I can remember, really. And so as I've settled more into motherhood and family as a dominant value, I've really noticed how my money is also going there a lot more than it perhaps used to, which was when it was more directed towards investing and saving. And so
that's so interesting.
Yeah, it really is interesting. And this is happening at the same time as you've really had to rejig your values to get finances higher up in order
to even get money on the ranking.
Yeah, to get
it wasn't even there.
And what I love about the audio course is how candid you particularly are around the fact that that wasn't really historically an area of empowerment for you.
No.
And that, there was great resistance.
Huge resistance.
To the point of which you would like try to read a book about finances and you would actually like have a fall asleep response to it. Like it would be a battle to push through. And I find that so interesting. I also love the fact that we, like just on the podcast in this course, we are so candid about the realities of where we can find ourselves and also how to get ourselves out of that and how to shift. And which is what I've loved witnessing in you in that time is what you've been able to do.
Yeah. I'm like super proud of myself too.
Yeah. Can we kind of share with our listeners what that's looked like for you? Because I know like for as long as I've known you, you've kind of had this dream of wanting to, renovate or do things to your house to bring greater joy to your family, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And so you've had like the vision boards, and you've had like the lists, and but for a long time you couldn't move past that. I couldn't move past the
years, 10 years.
And so give us an insight into that shift.
Okay. Well, I actually do think it started, Bridget, when you and I started really having super honest conversations about money 2 years ago, which is why Flip Your Finances came about. Because until then, even though we live in this culture that we say is so out there and, there's porn and sex and everyone just talks about anything they want to talk about out in the world, there's still areas that we hide from people. And money was certainly that. Like I couldn't say to someone, no, I can't come out for breakfast because I can't afford it this week. It's too shameful.
Yeah.
And the constant anxiety of when I get to the checkout for, groceries, have I got enough money in the account to pay for that? Or I really want that thing, stuff it, I'll put it on the credit card. So a huge amount of lack, and then conversely, a huge spiral of shame, and none of it was out in the open, and I couldn't communicate to anyone about any of it. And of course, the more something stays shameful and in the dark, the more it grows.
Yeah.
So by thinking I was protecting myself, I was just really building the gremlin.
Yeah, which you then have to face. The more we kind of try to bury it and ignore it. Just like a debt, right? Just like a credit card debt. The more you don't look at it, the bigger it gets.
Exactly. No, exactly. And you were the first person that I think I had created enough safety with that I could be utterly honest with. This is shit, and I've had enough of it, and I don't know how to get out of it. This cycle that I'm in, this cycle of lack, and I could see my story from my childhood. This is never enough. This whole never enough. It's not enough to go around. There's not enough to do that. I would look ahead at something, and as opposed to feeling into that of being a mindset of abundance, this feeling of that's possible, I want to do that, to expand myself, would be, there's no way, I can't afford that. So I was already shutting it off as even being an option before I would even entertain the idea. So I could see all of these beliefs. I could see my childhood story of there's not enough, which was certainly my mum's story, to some extent my dad's story, and then certainly our family story. I could see my mum's story of she does a huge amount of deprivation in all areas of life, and then because the deprivation gets so painful, she has this huge splurge reaction. So deprive, I'm starving, splurge. Yeah. And I could see that playing out in myself. I've done without, I've done so good, I haven't bought anything, and then it was like the explosion. So I could start to see how all of these patterns were feeding in to my reality. And at the same time was so personally resistant to looking at how it could be different, because the safe mechanism in my brain is to say it can't be. Yeah. Until my kids are older, until I'm earning more money, until, right? Yeah. And when you said to me, and I keep replaying it, and I still replay it now, unless you know where your money is going now, unless your money has purpose now, it won't matter how much you earn. You're not holding on to it. It's not going where you want it to go with purpose. It's just still slipping through your fingers.
It's like a lifestyle creep. It's like that classic case of if you get a pay rise, most people will just increase their lifestyle to meet the new pay rise, as opposed to go, I get a pay rise, let's save half of that, right? We don't really live in a culture that encourages saving, and more so now. And you can just look around you at the shops at Christmas time. The drive toward consumerism is just like, at saturation.
And this, I think, also the rise of social media and the comparison and the Instagram look of you have to have this in order to feel this,
and your home has to look just like this, and your children have to be dressed just like that, and you have to invest in yourself in this way, and
absolutely. So I kind of started to realize all of these patterns playing out, and I basically just sponged off you, much like probably what the Flip Your Finances is. I just kept asking you questions and questions and questions, and you would challenge my thinking sometimes. And I just made myself, like, literally knew I have huge resistance. It's there. It's a thing. So I can choose to believe the thing, or I can choose to move through it knowing that the greater the resistance, the greater the empowerment on the other side. So are you going to head into that storm, or are you going to walk around it? Yeah. And I'm not a walk around it kind of person. And the pain had got enough that I was like, fucking I'm over this. I cannot be 30 years old with something without sorting this out. And so I started reading books. So I just changed my reading list. So my reading list that would have been all parenting or all feminism in some form, I completely changed to it was all financial. And I just read and read and read from as many people as I could, from as many different personas or languages as I could in terms of just their style of talking about money, until I found a couple of books that just totally lit me up. And I trust that feeling of being lit up. So when I felt lit up and a little bit of a twinge, I was like, okay, I'm going in that direction. And, so I found a couple of books. So one was a spiritual book. One was the one I really loved was The Barefoot Investor. And I audiobooked his book because I couldn't actually read it physically. So I got to the point of audiobooking and making myself be busy while I was listening to stay awake.
And also I think that busyness is also kind of how we deal with our anxiety too.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, so my house was really clean.
Yeah. And you were learning great.
And I was learning. Yeah, exactly. And I got really excited about listening to this Barefoot Investor is this country Australian, and he just has the best, I just kind of love that voice. There's something so just
accessible about it.
Yeah, and earthy, and just, if he can do it, I can do it, you know. And so I literally mapped out his steps and literally replicated them. And sat down with my husband and said, right, this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it. And I need you to look at and so we went through completely all of our bills, which we're trying to do annually to get the best price on everything. So these are the bills I need you to look after. These are the bills I'll look after. We're meeting again next week to see where we're at, kind of thing. So I delegated, which is what I do best, and did everything from the grassroots up, really changed all of our bank accounts, changed the way that my husband's wage was being split up, changed the vision. And in that first year, so that was from Flip Your Finances to the end of that year, I was in a completely different financial situation. So nothing else had changed. No income had changed.
And that's what I love, and the point that is so important to drive home. It's not how much you earn necessarily, it's what you do with it.
Yeah. And I had to really get honest. I went through all of our bank statements for like the past 4 months or something and literally categorized where everything was going. And you can see my values playing out in my bank account. Like, it's almost, I'm laughing because it's so freaking ironic. But you ask me consciously and I'd be like, oh no, that's not true. But food, oh my freaking God. There were weeks I was spending $900 on food.
Far out.
So, okay, I'm not spending $900 on a dress.
No.
Because that would be frivolous, right?
And that would be indulgent, and that would be all of these things that you're not. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Right? But I'll spend $900 on food.
Yeah.
Because it's totally organic and it's healthy and we need it.
My family
and and I really had to look at that and go, that is ridiculous. Like, that's ridiculous. And Julie, if you want to empower finances, then you have to look at this stuff you don't want to look at and the stuff you want to defend. Because I wanted to. Yeah.
Oh, and I notice when I do it too. Like, I might not have that much money, but I'll always find money for a really, really good smoothie somewhere. Yeah. You know, or I'll always find money for, you know, the better eggs or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because we will manage to find money in accordance with our values.
Yes.
We make it work, even if it takes away from other things that potentially are important.
Yep. And kids' extracurricular activities and, you know, clothing for kids. So I kind of worked out where it was all going. So you could see my values.
Yeah.
And then I just made some calls about, okay, I need it to still go there, but I also need it to go here, which means I am going to have to move some from there and move it to here. And there's a budget in place there. So I know each week I spend X amount of dollars on food and that's it. And each week I have this. And what I liked about the Barefoot Investor is it's not just budgeting, that he also has what he calls a splurge account, which I really enjoyed because it removes that feeling of deprivation for me. So anyway, by the end of that year, we were debt-free, and other than the mortgage, and I had money in my account to pay for the things I needed to pay for. And I had never been in that position before, like not even like savings, like just money was there to pay for everything I needed.
Yeah. Like, so you knew that, you know, when the thing comes up for basketball or, you know, to the term fees, you know, you've got it there. You know, you're not going to have to like scrounge for it.
Yeah. And so that was massive for me. So at the end of that year, I was like freaking like celebrating, going, oh my God, Bridget, I've never been here. This is amazing, you know. And then we roll into this year. So in that Christmas, so last Christmas, I was lying on the beach still listening to, you know, audiobooks on finances. And they were getting a bit more spiritual by that point. And the ones that I was listening to were like, you have to set your goals. You have to be really clear. And I thought, that's what I'm doing wrong with my vision boards and with my affirmations and my, you know, New Year's resolutions is I'm going, I want to earn more money. I want a house renovation. I want to go on a holiday. I want, you know, blah, 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 blah. But none of it had legs, so to speak. Yeah. None of it was broken down into exactly how that was going to be achieved. And I realized that was where I went wrong. I was not being specific. It was kind of like a dream. I want to lose more weight.
It's kind of like that illusion that they sell in The Secret, which I know John Demartini still has a go at, which was that like the law of attraction happens when you just think about it.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. You know? Yes, that's totally where I was, which I think is where most spiritual type people end up. But if you want to lose weight, you've got to have a plan in how that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Which is going to be part of looking at the beliefs that say, I love my fat, I need my fat, looking at exactly how in your day-to-day and in your week-to-week that is literally going to be manifested physically. Because, you know, I just think, actually, I was in Women's Circle, and I'm digressing, I know, but I keep thinking about it because I was in Women's Circle last Saturday night and one of the women was sharing a story, and then she shared this parable from the Bible, and she was like, you know, it's like that guy who God had told him the flood was coming and God would save him. And so the flood comes, and as he's, you know, clinging onto the roof of his house and everything's flooding everywhere, a boat comes by and they go, jump on, jump on. He goes, no, God's going to save me. And then the boat disappears and a canoe comes by and they go, jump on, jump on. And he goes, no, I'm okay. God's going to save me. And then he drowns and he dies and he goes to heaven and says, God, you said you were going to save me. And he went, well, I sent you a boat and I sent you a canoe and I sent you a rescue team and you didn't take it. And I've just been thinking about that over and over and over again, where I'm like, she's so right. Like this woman who was saying this parable is, how much do we miss the help? Because it's not what we perceive it should look like or is, but in actual fact, it's the guide. You know, God doesn't go, oh, here, Noah, here's the ark. God goes, here's the materials, build your ark. You know? And it's almost like the uncomfortable conversations and the things that make you bristle are your way forward. And, and even in the audios you can hear, like in when we're talking about things and we're talking about the hedonistic like treadmill, and you make a couple of comments on like renovations and people who are renovating and because that's where I was.
Because you were really like, you were like triggered by it because you kind of wanted to be there, but you also didn't judging it and didn't want what that can come with, like, you know, what you were perceiving that can come with. And so it does require us to really look beyond that resistance, look beyond the way we think it needs to be.
And the things that we're absolute on, of course, we're always hiding. Yeah. Hiding our story.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I then spent that New Year's, as I remember, I can still picture it. I was we spent a lot of time at the beach in summer, and I was lying on the beach and in the sun, and I just thought, I'm going to write this down. And I like sat there and smacked out for about an hour exactly how I was going to achieve, or how it would be possible to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve for that year. So what were my New Year's resolutions in inverted commas? I wanted, and I looked at it the other day, which is how I said to you that I find this amazing. I looked at it the other day. So I wanted a 4-day stay away with my husband. I wanted a holiday. I wanted to earn more money. I wanted to have these things sort of happening in my year and in my month. And I wanted to get an exact, not in my head kind of made up number, an exact understanding and number of what it would look like to do the renovation that we want to do. Well, and I then mapped that out literally how that would look. So that would mean I would need to earn X amount per month, which would come through these avenues, which would mean I need to like I literally went big goal, mapped it into how that would be achievable little goals. And even as I'm looking at the inverted commas little goals, I'm going, I don't know. That seems pretty big leap from where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just started to prove it to myself. So in the first 3 months of that year, I had managed to stick to and achieve everything financially that I wanted to achieve in those 3 months. And flip forward another 6 months from there, and I not only had costed out the renovation, but we were doing the renovation. And when I looked back at my notes, I had even written on my notes, I do not want to pay more than $300 a month on my mortgage additionally to pay for this renovation. Guess how much I'm paying on my renovation?
How much?
$300 a month. Like I
Isn't that amazing?
find it amazing that we have the power to literally be that specific. Because I never wanted to work for a mortgage, but I wanted a nicer house.
Yeah.
And so I knew if I was earning X amount per month, but my mortgage was $300, I still had room for lifestyle, which is what I wanted.
Yeah, you didn't want to have that at the cost of the other things that are important to you.
No. And that's exactly what it's become. And I just like sometimes want to pinch myself at the moment. I'm like, this is amazing.
And what an incredible way to prove to yourself that when we really set an intention and we back that intention up with, a plan, how profoundly, beautiful it can turn out.
Yes. But it also takes a lot of self-checking. Like that's not just like bang all of that stuff up. And so during the year, I would have months where I was not cracking the goals that I'd set. But I would have to ask myself, what beliefs am I slipping back into? And I always was. I was slipping back into a lack mindset. I was slipping back into I can't, it won't, I'm not enough. All of the self-worth stuff that comes with that financial empowerment, they're so entangled. Or, old childhood stories. And so it was a constant process of well, what we do, isn't it, Bridget? Just peeling back the layers, more and more parts of my own story to realise how much we construct that is just total fucking bullshit.
And also how much we are so profoundly shaped by our stories, and so often we don't even realise it, like our childhood stories. Like that they just become, we become them.
And that we continue to make them up. And I have been since, and I freaking love Circle, but it always blows my mind how we all create our own BS and then we eat it. Me included, right? Me included.
That's almost a quotable. We all create our own bullshit, and then we eat it.
And then we eat it, and we believe that it's true. And yet, I can be in Circle with these women and see the BS and go, "Really? It's just a story that you're needing right now in order to stay where you're at." But same for me.
Yeah, well, we all do it because that's how we're wired.
Yeah. But it just always blows my mind. So is reality reality? No, it's not. No. But you have to be willing to sit in the discomfort of you being wrong in order to find what it is that you want.
It's interesting. I was in listening to this stuff and in the feedback that you've given me before where you tell me that I'm really empowered in this and I don't really think that I am, because I guess I can then compare myself to all the other people who I see way more empowered.
Well, you're the person really that inspired me to get to where I am. And I say to you always, I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you.
I wasn't getting there on my own, and there was no one around me. So when you talk about the 5 people that inspire you to reach your next level, there was no one around me that was that. No one.
And it's amazing how much we do settle into becoming the average of who we're surrounded by.
Totally.
And whether than that. And I remember you and I having a conversation about this years ago, and how uncomfortable that can be, because you realise if you want to elevate yourself from where you are, you need to actually consciously choose what you're surrounding yourself with. But anyway, in re-listening to this, and I was talking to my mum and saying, just, family dynamics broadly, with me and my husband and then looking at his family story and then my family story. And I was saying to my mum, it's interesting, she's one of 12. And I said, it's amazing how all of you, like you kids, like you're all pretty like empowered financially. Like no one's really kind of like lost all their money, or no one's like a loafer. Everyone's a professional, everyone's retired and, like travels overseas, and it just seems to be what they do. And mum was like, yeah, like, and I think it's because our mum would have like not had it that anyone couldn't stand on their own 2 feet because she had to. Like she was widowed with 12 children at a time when when in any other case they would have all been sent to orphanages. And because she managed to buy a business and run a business, she got to keep her kids. And that was her lifeline. And she had no other choice. And so I guess they grew up in that. And that adversity they grew up in meant that gave them the fuel and the belief and the story that meant that they couldn't
fail.
It'd be a great insult to their mother's sacrifice for them to squander away whatever they earned, And I thought that was both profound and quite beautiful, that even the things that we might say shouldn't happen, around families and around difficulties that we experience as humans, how that has a generational impact and how that changes the story of what's to come is amazing. And I guess it's that looking at how we become our story, and I'm quite sure that both my brother and I are really shaped by that too. Like that.
Well, you're both financially empowered.
Yeah. And I'm looking at kind of talking to my husband a lot about where his dad's at, and like him and I like banging our head against a brick wall, and we're like, how do you get to that age and not like, and it's a result of choices.
It's my mum too, though.
Yeah.
But I look at it now and there's part of me that still wants to strangle her because she does not want to listen to what it would look like to be more financially empowered. And I know at some point that's going to become my problem.
Well, that's how I feel. And I'm feeling resentful about it.
Well, no, I get it. I'm there too. But the other part of me is just taking it as another boat from God.
Yeah.
It's not where you want to be, Julie. So get your shit sorted.
Well, that's right. I mean, it can really be like like beep, beep, beep.
That's
like
exactly what I take it as.
Red flag, like get your shit sorted.
And I constantly go, where am I that? Where am I that? Where am I doing that?
Yeah, because, I'm judging that, but that's just me. I'm just judging me then.
So I didn't necessarily mean that's what you were doing, but that's what I take as my mum.
But because I've noticed, like, I have this like a visceral reaction to this, what's going on at the moment. And then I'm like, okay, well, there's something in this for me. Why am I so triggered by this? Because, and I guess it is because of my family story where you're a result of your choices. And my family, like my grandmother, made huge sacrifices and huge contributions to the world in order to secure her family. And I feel like we're going to end up bailing out my father-in-law, and like I don't like that. But there is obviously deep learning in that for me. And and it's even things like, okay, Hugo's starting prep, like where do I want him to go to high school? Because if I want, we're now having 3 children, if I want them in private education, I need to have a plan for that right now.
You do. Can I tell you, that's another high five for me.
Yeah, because you did like that
yes,
saving thing.
I'm so proud of myself. It's the only thing I did that was remotely financially empowered. So next year I'll have 3 children in private school.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about it. I mean Catholic private, not like private, but still Catholic private. So high school fees are $6,000 a year.
I'm thinking private going, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also possible, right? Like
it's totally possible. So high school fee is about $6,000 a year. Plus you've got uniform, which is about another 800. Computer, another 1,000. Like it just keeps going on.
Yeah.
And primary school fees, which are about $2,000 a kid. So that's a lot of education in a year. A lot. But we had set up an auto payment system back when our kids turned 1. That was back then the Australian Scholarships Group. Now I'm actually going to, which was what we did with the first 2, but I'm actually going to do something different with the second 2. But with the first 2, we did the Australian Scholarships Group and we set it up on, set it and forget it. which is what we did. We just lived without that money. And so every month since they were 1, we were saving about $500 a month. And so they get to the end of grade 6 and we have all of their high school fees paid.
It's so amazing.
Like amazing. And I just like want to kiss myself back then for making that choice.
That.
Honestly, I do, because what a relief that is now having more children and less income than what we had back then and more fees.
It's amazing.
Like, it's really great.
Yeah.
So the Australian Scholarships Group is like an enforced saving, really. It just means you can't touch it, which is actually great, because if we had have had control of that, I know I would have found...
So it's kind of like superannuation. It's kind of locked away.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And you don't get the lump sum. So they kind of feed it to you in annual payments for school fees. And then if your kids go to high school, to university, then they get the accumulated interest becomes a payment to them. So, you know, the barefoot investor doesn't like it because as an investment, it's not great. Like if you think about the amount of money that's sitting in there, the return on it is not excellent.
Yeah.
But there's no risk with it whatsoever, and it's enforced savings. So for us, it was still a great choice.
Exactly. Like if your financial literacy is not to the point where you can trust yourself to not touch it, then that's a better place for it.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Because yes, okay, from a financial point of view, it's not wise as a investment return.
No.
But if it's saving you from yourself,
yes,
it's worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've done that with the first 2, but with the second 2, I'm actually thinking now, which is funny, I've just started this year, which again is ironic, having a conversation with a mum that's kind of in my sphere, and I never realised. I knew that her husband was incredibly financially savvy, but to an extreme point where, you know, you live without nothing. You know, they're probably people with the most amount of money but the most decaying house, you know, that kind of scenario, which is not exactly where I want to be.
No.
But I kind of knew that. And then I started talking to her, and she earns over 20 grand a year on investments.
Oh, cool.
Didn't know that about her. So I started talking to her. So now I'm thinking that I'll do some sort of mutual fund for the next 2.
Great idea.
Anyway.
Like an index fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you about that.
I like it.
Continue with your story. So saving for high school.
Yeah. So I've really been thinking about, you know, what I want to, where I want to be, because we'll only have 2 there at any one time because of the age gap. But you know, it's still going to be close to 35 to 40 grand a year.
Yeah. So you're still thinking Cornish? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. And the other thing is my husband's not as convinced about private school. He went through state school, really happy with it, whereas I feel quite strongly about private school. So I also know that if I want it to be a reality,
you have to create it.
I have to create it.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, he doesnly even know how to log into our bank accounts. Like, I run everything. So, which has its pluses, which has its benefits and drawbacks. Sometimes I'd like him to, know more, but he also works really hard and brings some money in. So that's great. I do the other side. Yeah. But yeah, it's really got me thinking about, okay, well, if I want this much per year in there, what do I have to be saving now? And like, what's the interest going to look like? And how's our lifestyle going to fit that in, particularly when don't expect myself to be in any kind of regular income situation for at least the next 6 years, which then puts it back again on, okay, well, what am I doing with my businesses to create this, you know, because if we don't have like a big enough goal, we won't do the work to get ourselves to get there. And so when we start to think about, oh, well, if I do that extra thing there, or if I create that service for people here, then I can create this much to be able to put money to there, which is really important to me. And so you kind of have to reverse engineer your behavior to get the inspiration that we need to go out and be of service, right? And this is also, if you're in a job you don't love and you can't see purpose in it and you're feeling stagnant, which is a lot of the work that I had to do when I was in my corporate role and not enjoying it, was seeing how it was linking and serving what I was most passionate about, you know, what I was, you know, really inspired by. At that time, it was natural health. It was being able to afford acupuncture all the time. It was being able to afford great food, and seeing how I had this job that I didn't really like, but in fact gave me so much freedom and so much inspiration for the things that I did love. And then when you do that, you can then be much more inspired in how you show up. Yeah. Which is what we all want. We want to live with more vitality. We want to live inspired. But if we're not asking the right questions of how to get to that place, we just go through the motions and it feels like Groundhog Day and it feels difficult and it feels like pushing shit up a hill sometimes. And
we can become ungrateful, I think, for the situation we're in.
Because we can also just get stuck in the monotony of it and not see the magic in it. So, you know, and this is the kind of stuff, you know, we touch a little bit on in Flip Your Finances, but also, you know, obviously through Learning to Loving for those of you listening who've done that. But the Flip Your Finances course really is like a 5-day audio series. And so it's little bite-size MP3, so you can just listen to it in the car or wherever you are if you're cleaning or however you like to consume your learning. And we've broken it down into what we sort of see is like 4 key areas. So we've got it as values and balancing your emotions. So that's that piece on values and looking at where they're at.
And where's your money going?
Where's it going? You know, like, and that's such a profound, even that piece in itself.
Just to know, to be the overseer.
And it starts to challenge whatever like story you have around, I never have enough money. Because you go, well,
it certainly does.
Clearly I have enough for that. So I do have enough. It's just not where I am sending it. Like I'm sending it in places where I'm not valuing it or I'm not appreciating it. And then we move on to, I think I'm just looking at this list, download to. So then it's love your debt, which this was a really big one. This was looking at, rather than that kind of, getting anxious when we get a bill or resenting our mortgage or a car loan or whatever it is that feels like it's hanging over our head, how do we shift that feeling into a feeling of appreciating what it gives us, appreciating how our debt gives us purpose, appreciating how it serves perhaps our relationships by, what I talk about in there is valuing my husband's incredible ability to be so handy around the house and how that saves us thousands on trades and things like that we'd otherwise have to outsource, and it gives me more chance to see him in a different light, and value him more, which fuels our relationship. So just those kind of questions that we can ask ourselves to challenge the story we have on debt. First of all, to see it as purposeful, not this sucking the life out of us kind of behemoth that we can create.
No, I totally love that. And that's still a constant practice for me to do that, because I can still slip in and out of that. So one of the accounts, so with the BEF Investor, we end up setting up seriously, you don't have to, but I did break our income down into seriously 10 accounts. Yeah. And one of those accounts is specific for bills. And so there's some that I have set up on auto payment, set it and forget it. And there's some that I can't. And so they sit in this account each month. And I still open my account and flick through there and go, oh, that feels so good to have bill money sitting there. Not the anxiety that of not being able to pay it. But a bill comes in and I go, oh, I'm so grateful I have that. And I enjoy the experience of transferring the money across and paying that bill. And I think there's something in that appreciation factor as opposed to the lack, oh, there's not enough, the bills, it's too much, it's sucking everything from me. Oh, I really enjoyed I enjoy how electricity is in my home. Yeah. I enjoy the water and the beautiful shower that we have. And I have enough money there. I'm going to pay you for that. That was great. You know?
It is an amazing. And in fact, because I think it was around the time of Flip Your Finances, so just before that I also set up that same system. I think that we've got about eight different accounts. And so it means that if I, want my kids to do something extra, I know that there's money in there for me to direct it there. Or if something happens to my car, I know there's generally a buffer of $1,000 sitting in there. Yeah. So it just takes away that anxiety. And, and it's not because we're shoveling heaps in it. It's just a little bit over time, like $100 a month or whatever it is. Yeah. And it just builds up in there. And it's just in terms of creating more emotional stability in us, it's really quite profound. So then we move on after we go from loving your debt. We then look at universal laws that govern money. So understanding, much like through Learning to Loving, we talk about universal laws. We talk about money as an energy. And so basically in a monetary system, it flows from the people who value it least to the people who value it most. So if I don't really value, let me think about it. If I I'm trying to think about the scenario that I used in that. I think in fact I was talking about you and I was saying if for you don't have saving money very high on your list of things. But
on
you
my
have,
values.
Yeah, on your values. But you have family extracurricular activities, then the person who creates the business for your family to go and enjoy is going to get your money because you have family activities and family togetherness really high, but not like building a business for people who do that. So the person who has the business for you to, express your highest values in, you're going to give them your money. And so money is constantly flowing in an economy from people who value it least in terms of like holding on to it, valuing it least, to people who value holding on to it the most. And that's why, like, as much as we can judge like the 1%ers or judge like, the millionaires or the billionaires or the CEOs and, all of these people who society loves to judge, ultimately those people have greater governance around money. They have greater value on keeping it, not spending it. And that is how money ends up concentrating into those areas. And so when we can look at that as simply an expression of, energy and value, then we can take away the sting for us personally and bring more empowerment into our own life in terms of how we want to direct it for us. And then we go on to different tools and tips. So just kind of a wrap up of each of the areas and then kind of giving people something to walk away with. And an example is like how to go and set up those accounts and to just
belief systems to start looking at.
And basic stair-stepping, kind of like incrementally increasing the savings, just so that because when we incrementally increase our savings, it's like flips on our executive center of our brain to look at how we can increase our income in so that we can increase our savings. Because it's that whole reason of creating purpose. Like when we're creating purpose for money, we create purpose for bringing it in. We create purpose for ourselves to create it.
That's my next step. That's where I need to get to this year.
Well, that's where I want to put more focus this year too. So we're kind of doing this for ourselves.
I'm so happy that you're speaking about this because I really needed it.
Yeah. And so what we're doing to kick off the year, because it is so timely, I think, as many families find themselves at this crunch point around Christmas and this constant feeling of giving out.
Yeah, and it could be anxiety, like there's not enough. I don't have that money. Or do you know, I was having laser yesterday and I was talking to the young girl and she's young, who's doing the laser there, and she's, you've got all your Christmas shopping, and I said, yeah, I'm nearly done actually. And I said, how about you? And she goes, no, I haven't done any of it. I don't know. I think I'll just what's that pay it later thing? What's that?
Afterpay.
I think I'll just afterpay everything and worry about it later.
Oh God.
I know. But that was I just went, And in my head I'm thinking, holy shit, what is this generation going to end up like?
That's also what I really worry about, and why I think as mothers we really need to, like, financial literacy, they're not getting it in the outer world.
They're so not. And hence the invention of something like Afterpay.
Exactly.
Don't even
on principle, I'm never using that because I cannot agree with it.
I can't agree with it either. But I mean, it's no different to a credit card.
It's true. It's no different to a credit card. That's right. But a credit card I always pay off in full.
Yeah, but that's not, I don't think that's the general consensus of a credit card.
No, yeah, true. But I think it makes it even more accessible. I think a credit card is one thing, but Afterpay is like a whole other ball game because it's so seductive. It's like, have it now.
Easy.
Have it now. Like don't wait, or don't save up. Just have it now.
Yeah. No, I do. I think psychologically it's a really, and as I was listening to this young person, I was thinking, oh my God, what are you, 23? Like,
we say that housing affordability means that no one's going to be able to afford anything, but I also don't think that we're setting young people up with the values that mean they're going to have the delayed gratification that it requires to save. No,
I totally agree with that. And in fact, that's a conversation I have particularly with my middle daughter a lot, because she's like, get the money, spend it, get the money, spend it. She can't. My son holds on to money and enjoys the experience of knowing how much money he has in his wallet. And he'll often look at things online and go, I really like that. That's $150. I have $180. And I'll go, do you want that thing? I don't know. Like, and even for Christmas this year, he'd already organised, one of our friends went overseas, so he had worked to save $50 on shipping if he got them to pick up these shoes for him, that he loves shoes. I said, okay, that's great, because he had all of this money sitting in his wallet. Anyway, they arrived back and his nana was over and he goes, oh, no, actually, do you feel like if you want to get me something for Christmas, these could be something you could get me? And she was like, yeah, great, that's wonderful. And I was looking at him going, you're a freaking genius. You still managed to get the thing you want, but keep the money in your wallet. Like,
isn't that amazing?
That's amazing. But my daughter, so my eldest daughter, cannot. It is like money slips through her fingers. And it's a constant conversation I have with her and as I do with a lot with her, is this sense of anxiety, that this sense of, FOMO.
Oh, yeah.
FOMO and the discomfort that we can feel when our needs aren't being met in that moment. And I think there's something to that because she was my fully attachment on the breast all the time baby. Soothe, drink, sweet. No need to feel anything because you can just be soothed.
Yeah, right.
And I still wonder.
She's doing it with like money.
With everything. She's my most anxious child. She's the one who struggles the most to stay in any type of discomfort, any type. So she's the one I'm constantly, as you would know if you listen to the podcast, constantly having conversations around how to expand her tolerance for feelings, particularly the ones you don't want to feel.
Yeah.
And I think it's like that with like Afterpay is this sense of not having the instant gratification, not having the thing you want right now. And I'm always having the conversation of, feels uncomfortable. And it's, where's that coming from and how does that feel? And it's safe to be here. And I think that's a parenting tool that sets our children up for financial stability.
Because they can feel into more and therefore stay with more as opposed.
Yeah, they don't have to numb it.
Well, because Afterpay almost means that you don't have to feel that sense of like lack. You don't have to feel like, oh, I don't have enough for that. Because it's okay, we've just got this solution over here for you.
Yeah.
You
don't have to stay in the feelings. But if you already have a strong tolerance for what it feels like to be in inverted commas deprived, then you're okay to stay there.
Yeah. And you'll almost see it as a challenge, like how much can I, because for a long time, part of what helped me was that it was like, how long can I not renovate my house for? How long can I?
I don't know if I'm there, Bridge.
That was part, and it also it was useful, and I can see now how I geniusly orchestrated my values back then, was that I had really strong environmentalist values and sustainability values and anti-consumerism values. So I almost made all of these things of consumption wrong in order to get my bank account massive.
Oh, that's genius.
So I would I would spend an intense amount of time understanding, and which also feeds my value on understanding human behavior, was understanding how consumerism works and how the hedonic treadmill works.
Yes, because when I met you, you were like full on.
Yeah. And now I can see it was fucking genius.
It is genius.
Yeah, because
it's another story, isn't it? We create our own BS and then we eat it.
Yeah, so I created that, and that probably served me for a good 10 years.
So fantastic.
And then I can go, okay, like that's interesting, and I don't have the trigger on it now. I still have values around mindful kind of consumption to a degree, but it's really interesting to see how sometimes the things that we hold on to so tight, we're holding on to for some deeper purpose that that we're seeking to serve.
Yeah, genius. Oh, I love it. Love it so much. Anyway, so let's wrap this up.
Yes.
Bridge. Where do you want to go from here?
So we have Flip Your Finances on sale now for $59. If you want to jump in and eat up all of those modules and get yourself set for your new year, look at your stories, kind of understand the deeper energetics of money and the psychology of saving.
So will we have that on sale until the end of December, or are you going beyond that? So
that is going beyond. So we'll have that up for sale, and our rate is $59, but what you're going to get at the moment, if you sign up between now and the third week of Jan, is you'll get to jump in with us for a week to hop into a little mastermindy kind of Facebook group.
Shame-free group
where we can show up, where we can lay it all on the table, where we can share our epiphanies together about, what kind of, realizations we're having about our own story or our values and how we've used them, and where we're judging people and how that's actually helping us, sort our shit out, like we've talked about in this episode. And so we really want you to use this opportunity with us to kind of set yourself up for your year, I guess, and bring more governance and more inspiration around money and finances, and also recognizing, where transforming your lack, so looking at where your wealth is. This is another piece that you and I talked about a lot, was that yes, Jules might have been feeling incredibly lacking financially, but you can see her wealth is enormous in family and relationships. Without a doubt. And so we can get so stuck in the lack of money, but where is our wealth?
I think that's part of the abundance mindset, though, is not still thinking of trying to flip your own psychology and will yourself into finding abundance in finances, but actually starting to take a bigger picture perspective on having gratitude for you. And like you've discussed, Bridget, the beliefs that you have brought to the table that have fueled your abundance. I think that it's different doing it that way too. I'm just going to will myself into gratitude.
Yeah, which is hard and forceful, and it's almost at odds with the alignment that we're deeply seeking. And we can find that alignment when we go, oh, okay, I know I feel, not very prosperous financially, but gosh, you look at how I show up here in my life. Look at what people come to me for. Look at where I feel most lit up. How can I link that to my finances? How can I help myself see that putting more emphasis on my finances is actually going to serve that area of my own growth and serve that area of my life that I really want to continue to show up in, not have to shrink. So we, as Bridget said, we're just doing this once a year. We're just doing it for 1 week, private group, $59. After that, you can still buy Flip Your Finances, but it will go back up to the original price of $97 and will not come with a live round. That's right.
So if you are really interested in busting out your shame story, creating some really meaningful and intentional financial goals for your year, so not just a New Year's resolution, but something that has legs, then we really do invite you to jump in with us and do that and completely transform where you think you can be in 12 months' time.
Yeah. We're excited.
Yeah.
We hope you'll join us. So to connect with us is nourishingthemother.com.au.
Where can we access Flip Your Finances?
It's under our shop. So if you go straight to the shop on the menu bar, on the website, you can find it there.
Great. And to connect with you, Bridge?
suburbansandcastles.com. And you, Jules?
Is thepleasurenutritionist.com.
And remember to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week after Christmas. So we hope you have a really beautiful day with your family. And either just breathe in those triggers and come work with us with those afterwards. Or really enjoy how far you've come perhaps from last Christmas if you've done some courses with us, and really actually high five yourself, even if it's just on the inside, of how far you have come in transforming those relationships and those things that would have triggered you previously. So enjoy your triggers and enjoy your family time.
Yes.
We'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.